Ensuring personal safety while alone is not just important, it is imperative for your well-being. In today's world, where threats exist both online and in the physical realm, taking measures to protect yourself is crucial. When working alone, whether in a remote location or from home, being vigilant and proactive about your safety is essential. Our series of videos on lone working highlight the significance of understanding what it means to work alone and the potential risks involved. By educating yourself on these risks, you can better prepare and implement measures to safeguard your personal safety. It is vital to have a safety plan in place, which may include setting up check-in procedures with a colleague or loved one, ensuring your location is secure, and having emergency contacts readily available. Additionally, familiarize yourself with techniques and tools that can aid in protecting yourself in case of an emergency. Remember, your safety is paramount, and taking steps to ensure it should not be overlooked. By being proactive and informed, you can mitigate potential risks and create a safer environment for yourself while working alone. Watch our videos to learn more about lone working and discover effective strategies to enhance your personal safety. Your well-being is worth prioritizing, and investing in your safety is a valuable step towards a secure and protected future.
Safe. And what we do every now and again is we pick a subject that is, shall we say, relevant to us at that time. And again, it's come around again, lone working. Lone working is one of them subjects that's picked up speed again. We've got brand new clients nearly every week that come to us and say, can we assist in promoting staff safety, or even look at, shall we say, some of the devices that they've had and have a chat about it. Now, what I'm trying to do in these next series of videos is just take the 5 headings. Here's the 5 headings, like working with close supervision and support, in the context of home working, mobile workers, or even, shall we say, alone in premises, and then lastly would be out of hours working. And you can rephrase them in any way you want, because that's what I do. I look at them and I reflect them to the lone worker. And I say, well, do they apply to 1 of them, 2 of them, 3 of them, what? And then we devise it. So let's start with this video just looking at the top one. Now, I want to look at that word support, because yes, we look at it, we give our staff training, we give them equipment, we give them procedures. Sometimes the procedures don't match the job role sometimes, which I've found from my experience of doing this job. But I also talk to the management especially about, okay then, what about that support element in the context of if there's an incident? How quick can we get to that staff member? I mean, do we ever sit down and think, well, actually, to get out to that staff member is going to take us from our main office to give them support, physically go to them, could possibly take 40 minutes to an hour. I've worked a lot with organisations in the rural environment, and it's quite fascinating that some of the distances can be 1.5 hours to 2 hours apart. And people are shocked at that, because the staff member works from home, works out on the site within that geographical area. But again, if they have an incident, they could be 2.5 hours away from support. And it has happened. I also look a lot within the urban environment. I mean, I've had even a conversation last week about the support element of a housing group getting out to one of their housing officers in the city of Dublin. And if you've ever travelled across the city of Dublin at peak traffic, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And yes, I know it happens in London, Manchester, Birmingham. Yes, I understand that. Before anyone starts commenting and saying, well, it's just as busy here. Yes, I know that. But I'm pointing out that even getting across the urban environment can take some time. So when I look at that, I don't just look at it at the point of giving them the right support in the sense of the procedures are clear and defined, which is very important, or the training hits the mark, which is definitely very important, otherwise why are we a training company? But I'm also asking them to sit back and look and think, right, is that person the right person to work on their own? Nothing against the individual. But also, if that person had an incident, how quick could we react? And before anyone says anything, yes, they ring 999. Yeah. I've been doing this job quite a while, and I've been in incidents where the staff member has rang 999 and no offence to the police or the Garda Síochána, not one bit. But it's been a while for the assistance to arrive on scene. And that's no fault of anybody, because it's just the way things can be. So again, when we look at that, you can read it. Think to yourself, Have you followed that training? Have you given them that right support? Yes, the training, yes, the procedures, yes, the equipment, but also in the event of an incident, can you give them that right support? And also, obviously, after an incident as well. We get a lot of clients that come to us and ask us, are they doing the right thing, or should they do anything to improve their staff safety while the staff are at home or working from home and going to meetings obviously outside of their home? And I say, well, let's look at the basics of it. Communication is a big thing. It is. If you've got staff members that are working solely all day on their own, how are we keeping in touch with them? Yes, we're seeing emails going backwards and forwards. We're seeing maybe the odd text, might be a call. But how frequent is this happening? It's interesting when I've talked to staff, and some staff were saying to me that they've actually had days where they've not physically spoken to anybody. The Teams used to be a big thing. You see people popping up on Teams. That seems to have dried up a little bit. Zoom, I mean, we use Zoom. Zoom is, shall we say, not used as much. So there has been this slight detachment. It creates an isolation of the staff. So one core factor I put across is, right, have we actually sat down and worked out how we keep in touch with our staff? Have we done, which I talk a lot about with clients, have we got even moments where we get the staff together, if it's virtual, and have a chit chat about anything? Just pick a subject, holidays, anything. Even anything off the news, obviously not to depress you. But the thing is, do we do that? I then say, well, how do we actually get them to log in, log out? I'm not being cruel. Some clients say, well, it's easy because when they log on the system, we know they're okay. It doesn't work like that, does it, in a sense? So I get them to work out what is that, because that's what the main thing is. So anyone working home, I always say, well, how do we keep in touch with them? Then I talk a bit about the hybrid as well. Yes, I know there's that part. I can feel someone thinking it right now. Well, what about the way they sit? Yes, that's all health and safety. That's all dealt with by the health and safety. Let them do that themselves. The risk assessments of the workstation, everything. That's nothing to do with me. I'm looking more when they're on their own. Then you look at it for those that are what I call hybrid. So they go to meetings or they go and do visits. So they leave their home, go to a visit, do a meeting, and then return back. How do we keep in touch with that person? Do they need any form of device? Do they need any form of equipment? How are we keeping in touch with them? Are we making sure that they get home after they've actually had that specific meeting? We take very for granted now our mobile phones. The mobile phones are fantastic, we all know that. But how many of you have rang somebody and they've not answered and actually physically said to yourself, where are they? Because that's what I try to ask staff and management to do, is to sit back and say, yeah, okay, the staff are working from home, but how do we keep in touch? What is our system? One of the easiest systems of all, WhatsApp group. Not being funny, a WhatsApp group. We use them. We keep in constant contact. When you say that to people, they say, oh, well, but what I also point out to a lot of staff that I've been speaking to that work from home, has any of you ever felt ill at home? Has any of you ever felt a bit dizzy? Has any of you ever felt a bit sick? Quite a lot of them went, yeah, actually, I've had that. Well, do any of you live in houses with stairs? Not being funny, can you fall down the stairs? Are you having anything done at your house where you could trip over something? And it is quite amusing when you hear them and they all go, well, yeah, I can. So the main thing about, believe it or not, home working or even that hybrid is having that point of how do we communicate frequently throughout that day. Hybrid working, and this one is mobile workers. Now, the interesting thing about mobile workers is, yeah, we can plot in our diary exactly where we're going to be that day, in our shared calendars, but things change. But what I try to do with mobile workers is I work from the basics. I say a lot around, well, okay, what have we got in our vehicle in the event of an incident? So have we got first aid pack? Have we got even tyre sealant? Which, again, there's a video if you want to go through the videos just to see. I also then talk around other things as well. Do we have any warm equipment or anything like that, like coats or anything like that, blanket, water, even dry foods if necessary. Not that you're going to camp out all night, but, you know what I mean, if you have a breakdown, well, you could be there for quite a while. I then also then break upon it other things like do we have proper car recovery? Do we actually have things like what 3 words? Again, sorry to say it, but there is a video on our channel that will give you that idea. But when it comes to mobile workers, we've got to be prepared to make sure that we know the areas we're going to work in, firstly. And secondly, what is actually things like the mobile signal like? Sounds funny if you think about it, but if I'm going to be working in a certain geographical area where there's no phone signal, well, that could cause issues for myself. Because how am I supposed to communicate with my colleagues if the event of an incident or even an accident? Mobile workers, as it says in the title, are moving from A to B. And I don't mean inside of a building, it's going to say a certain parts of a building. I'm on about in a geographical area, whether that's in the urban environment or a rural environment. Mobile workers should realistically take a few minutes and say to themselves, right, okay, have I got enough equipment in my vehicle? Or even if I'm travelling via public transport, have I got carrying the right equipment? Then also looking at and saying, right, have I put enough information inside my calendar, or have I alerted enough people, staff, colleagues of where I'm going to be? And then you can build upon that when you get the basics right. Like you can even start working on, well, have you got a safe zone to go to? And what I try to encourage people, look at a geographical area of where you're working, look at where you're working, where even other organisations are, say for instance other offices. And then say to yourself, well, if I have an incident in this area, well, probably I could go to this area, which is obviously something like a hotel or a shopping centre, to feel safe, if obviously an incident occurred. And then I say to them, lastly, is this: how contactable do you really think you are? As I always joke, if I took your mobile phone away from you, would you be confident you would know how to contact somebody else? And yes, some people say, well, I carry 2 mobile phones. But I'm not being funny. If you've got no phone signal whatsoever and you're not in an emergency, well, who could you call? Just asking. What's your backup plan? So if you're a mobile worker or you have staff that mobile work for you, have you ever sat down and gone through it? What do they have in the vehicle? What do they have in the event of an emergency in the vehicle, I should say? Have they actually put enough information in their calendar, their diary? And just ask yourself, what if they did go missing? How would you find premises? We get a lot of clients come to us and ask us about advice for their staff that work alone in premises. And what we have a tendency to do is we go out and we look at where first the building is, in the geographical area. Is it in the urban? Is it in the rural? Is there any risk within that area? Is there any support agencies within that area? What is close to that, shall we say, that vicinity that could be a risk or support? We also then look at the building. Is it where people are, shall we say, coming in for advice? Is it a hotel? Is it, shall we say, even a tenancy? What is that actual building used for? So we look at the basics of the risks straight away. But like I said, we look at the access and egress of them premises. How do they get in? Is it a walk-in? Is it a key fob, card, keypad? How do people enter and exit? We also then look at the CCTV. Okay, what does the CCTV cover? Is it in the right position? Now, we've got to remember, high degree of CCTV on premises is not really monitored. It's just there for a recording basis, even insurance purposes in some cases, especially when it comes to footfall cameras. But then what we try to do is, okay, what is the interaction from the people that are entering into them premises with the staff member? Is there a reception? Is there a counter? Is there a room? What is the connection? And then again, also assessing what is that risk. So do we have to, shall we say, change the reception area? Small degree. Do we have to put in a Dutch door if it's an office basis? A Dutch door is what we call a half door, like a barn door. I'm sure you've seen them. To limit the person entering into that room. So then we look at things like that and we look at, okay, well, there's a staff member. How do they interact with whoever that might be? That member of public, that guest, or even that tenant. We then break it down even more. Okay, let's say something happens to that staff member, has an incident. Where can they go to feel safe? Is it the office or is it somewhere else? We then break it down even to more. So how does that staff member alert, shall we say, other colleagues or even something as severe as the police in the event of an emergency? So we're breaking it all down again. Do they require any form of equipment? Do they require a panic button? Is there a panic button? Does it work? Do they require an app on their phone? Like I have an app on my phone. Okay, I have an app on my phone. If I press it, I get assistance. So we break it all that down into the context of, okay, then how do they actually communicate? But then what we also talk a lot about, which I think is very relevant, is what happens if the staff member becomes ill? How do we know if we're off site that that staff member that's alone in them premises is actually ill? Do we have them with an app that has a fall detection or anything like that would come into it? And again, it's a massive sphere of information that we have to gather before we put a certain plan in place. But again, it's down to you that is watching this video. Have you taken the time, if you're obviously working alone in premises on your own, or you are responsible for staff that work on their own, have you gone back to them basics? Making sure, well, the staff know exactly what to do, okay, whether that's through their procedures and obviously training. Have they got the right equipment? And are you confident that you keep in touch with them enough? Or, as I said, you're that staff member. What's your line of communication to your colleagues? Have a think about it, because, not being funny, we have had quite a few incidents in our experience here at Quell of staff being in premises on their own, and believe it or not, a lot of them were preventable. I was working. Now, from my experience, I've worked with many organisations on staff that work in buildings on their own all night, whether that's a tenancy, hotels, or even in a supervision mode. Also, on the other scale, I've dealt with, shall we say, staff that are in enforcement role, that go out to enforce a certain rule on their own or in pairs in the middle of the night. So we've got systems for that, but what we have a tendency to do is forget about a little small element of people that work out of hours. That means those that possibly travelling from a meeting or a visit, or even a seminar or conference, or something to do with the work, and they're going to arrive home late. We sometimes, not intentionally, but miss that problem. It's like I've said to my clients, have we got any of our staff that work late? And they say no. And I say, okay, do they ever attend, shall we say, community meetings? Or shall we say, meetings that are outside of the, shall we say, the normal daily shift hour of 9 to 5? And they'll go, well, yeah, we have a meeting at, shall we say, a community meeting once a month, and it finishes at 10. Okay, well, do we know that staff member's got home safely? Have we got staff members that probably part of their job role, sometimes they might have to drive a considerable distance to get home, and they could be home late? Are they travelling, shall we say, by, airplane or train? Even boat, doesn't matter. But they arrive home late. Do we actually make sure that they're home safely? And some staff go, well, they only do it once a month. I go, that's okay. I'm not saying it's bad or good, but an incident doesn't happen to a person that is consistently doing that role. It can happen to anybody. Even walking down the street, you can fall over. So then I talked to him about, well, okay then, have we got that same contactability? Have we looked at it and said, well, have we got a system in place, even a text? So if I get home safely, I text my colleagues or WhatsApp group that I'm safe. I mean, like myself, I travel a lot now. I'm back on the road. I stay a lot during the week in hotels. And even when I'm in a hotel, I consistently text my colleagues through a WhatsApp group that we're in. And I basically even tell them what room number I'm in. And they do vice versa when they're staying away. And it is one of those things that out of hours we forget about. We look at out of hours of, well, that's somebody that's permanently working on that night shift or that overnight or whatever that system might be. But we don't sometimes think about those that are probably working late just by chance, or even working in a licensed premises. They're going to finish at that 1 or 2 in the morning. And again, it's down to how much you care about your staff and how much they want to be, I hate the word monitored, but how much they want to basically make sure their staff are safe. So all I'm asking you in the final video is, and we've gone through the rest, is just this. Have you ever sat back again yourself, if you're the staff member, and said to yourself, well, actually, I'm not contactable with people enough if I'm working late? Or secondly, if you're responsible for staff that could be possibly working late, have you actually thought to yourself, is there some little system I can put in place to make sure they're all right? Because there's nothing worse than you having a staff member working late, and let's say having a breakdown, accident, or worse, an incident, and you not knowing about it till the next morning. I wouldn't like to be in that position. Thank you for watching. I hope the 5 videos now have been of some interest. I hope they've given you food for thought. And again, as I've said, all the videos are just a small look at them, a small, what I call discussion starter. There's more to each different lone working risk, as you will see. But don't forget, you can have staff that work alone in premises on their own and then they end up going out mobile working. Just saying. Or you could have staff that work on their own in premises and they work out of hours. So you mix it, and then also lastly, you've also might have that staff member that hasn't got the right support. I'm just asking you to think about it. For more information, please check out our rest of our videos. Follow us on LinkedIn, and you never know, as I always say, you might find something of interest. Stay safe whatever you're doing, and bye for now.